Hey guys, thanks for joining us again. Woody here. We're going to be doing a video today, how to do a stretching cast. Some people would call this a serial casting like you've seen in some earlier on videos with club feet. Club feet casting is also a form of serial casting. Primarily you see serial casting ordered by the providers when it's a club foot or when it's a stretching cast. Stretching casts are usually done, in our field, they're usually done lower extremities, legs, ankles, feet, tight calf muscles, tight tendons, ligaments, and a patient presents up on their toes and called toe walking, and the provider will ask you as the ortho tech to create some stretching cast. And they're called serial casting because it's usually done 2 or 3 or 4 sets. The goal is not to try to do the full correction the very first set of casts. It causes too much discomfort, so you want to try to gradually get a little bit more correction each set of casts. Again, you will see serial casting in other parts of the body, depending on if it's a toe walker versus a spinal injury or a brain injury or a cerebral palsy child, or maybe even sometimes you'll see them post-op. And what will happen is, like, if there's tightening in the wrist, you'll see serial casting done in the wrist as well. But we're going to get into that now. We have some material set up here to do the serial stretching cast. When you're doing the serial stretching cast, you can use a cast stand. When you use the cast stand, you'll have to keep the patient in at least a right angle, but the goal is to get them a little bit more dorsiflexed. And dorsiflexed, of course, when you bring the toes up a little bit more than 90. You can try to achieve that with a cast stand. There's a couple different cast stands you can use. We'll talk about that further on in the video. Or you can have the patient lay on the exam table, and you want to have them lay on their belly, laying prone, and then you bring their leg up so you get a little bit more leverage. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and get all set up here and get started. So we're going to go ahead and put the cast stand aside for now. I mentioned just a second ago how putting the patient laying on their belly, what ends up happening is you can ask the patient to bend at the knee, and as they bend at the knee, let's assume that this patient, no, it's okay, you can say it like that. Let's assume that this patient is a toe walker. They're going to automatically shoot their toes straight up in the air like that, because that's the position that neurologically they've been doing for however long before coming to you. So our goal is to get them from this position down, definitely down to a 90, but we're going to try to get a little bit more each time. We'll talk about that. Because I have the patient, she's a young lady, and of course I'm a male provider, just the right thing to do, the respectful thing to do, is to cover the patient for professional reasons, and it's the gentlemanly thing to do. Go ahead and bend for me. So while they're in that position, you're going to go ahead and get your stockinette. There's a couple key points we want to talk about here. I'm not going to get into the making of the whole cast because I know that's a big, long, lengthy amount of time. So of course, as we've done in previous videos, we'll speed past that. So you get the stockinette on, and you explain to the patient what you're doing, and you go into the whole speech about the do's and the don'ts with casting. All the rules are the same as any other cast and any other video that you've seen. Here we go, sorry about that. So all the rules about not getting it wet and so on, and not sticking foreign items in it and so on. You guys have seen me do this cut at the front of the ankle many times. In this particular case, it's quite important because what's going to happen, we're going to get her down to a right angle and hopefully 5 or 10 degrees dorsiflexed. You can leave a little bit of excess past the toes because most of the time when you do a stretching cast, you do the stretching cast all the way to the ends of the toes, and you do that so that you're putting support right over the surfaces that they're used to walking on. So what you do is you ask the patient to demonstrate for you how far they can go down. Most patients will only go down maybe 5 or 10 degrees, and if that's all they can do, that's all they can do. You're not trying to, the whole Rome wasn't built in a day thing. But what you want to try to do is you want to try to get them down as close to 90 as you can, and if they let you, that's fantastic. And here is where another set of hands comes in super helpful, because what's going to happen is every time you walk away from the patient, they're going to shoot right back up again. And this comes into play when you start doing your padding. Because just like we've done in some of the previous videos, the cast with the bends and the molds and so on, every time that you walk away and they shoot right back up, they're messing up the padding that you're doing. So for example, say you have them in this position and you start doing your padding. So like for example, in her case, because she's going to be weight bearing, I'm going to do the 3 strips. So here's what happens. Every time you walk away, that's what's going to happen every time. So when you're doing stretching cast, for more than just this reason, you want to have at least 2 people doing the stretching cast, at least. 1 to hold and 1 to do the wrapping. And of course, you can always interchange. You can do like the high five, crisscross kind of thing. If one person's closer to the water or the materials, you can come over here and take over the holding while I go over here and do the materials, and so on and so forth. So we've got her in position. We're going to assume we have somebody holding. Now, the goal, if you want to come around this way, as you can see, we have her almost at 90. She's very close to 90. As you're wrapping, if you can have somebody, now say for example, you don't have an extra set of hands, incorporate the parents, incorporate the whoever's in the room with you. If it's the patient's partner, if it's their parents, whoever it is, there's no law that says the parents can't help you hold. So you have them hold them in position, and if you can get 5 or 10 degrees more, that's way better. That's your goal. So let's assume somebody's holding right now. I know that they're not, but let's assume they are. Get rid of all your excess here so that you don't have any breakdown in the skin. And most importantly, if you want to come around the front here, this is important when you're doing stretching cast, because of the nature of the deformity. As you're rolling the padding and the casting on, you want to watch for the medial mal. They want to roll out. It's just the nature of a toe walker. They want to roll out. So as you're holding, or whoever your helper is that's holding, you want to try to maintain a nice flat surface, nice even surface, and you want to keep a close eye and make sure that their foot's not turning out as you're rolling your cast, and so on and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and pause here while I get this all wrapped up, and then we'll move on to the next step. So as you guys, as they're doing these little clips of me making the cast, you'll notice that I'm doing something that I want to be really, really honest with you guys about something. You'll notice that I'm using my chest to hold her foot in place. I am in the habit of being made to work alone when I'm making casts, so you can use this trick to keep their foot in place, but in the interest of being very, very transparent, this is not the best way to get the foot in the position that the doctor's ordered. So if you want to start with this and use your body to help hold them relatively in position, that's acceptable. But when you get to the details of it, you want to get another set of hands. This is just maintaining the wrinkles we talked about so that she doesn't pop right back up and crease up all this padding that we're doing. So I just want to let you know that I am leaning into her foot to hold position, but I highly, highly recommend getting a second set of hands so that the cast comes out just right. So of course, like we do with all the other casts, we're going to start with an under layer of fiberglass. This is really, really crucial, you guys. This is where you need your other hand to hold them dorsiflexed and to make sure that this medial mal isn't rolling outward. So when you come to where your dorsiflexion creases at the front of the ankle, you want to make sure to use the middle of the fiberglass. This is really crucial, guys, so that you have little to no creases in the bottom here, because you are dorsiflexing the foot. So you want to make sure that all of this lays down nice and flat and you don't have skin breakdown. Also too, I have found after doing these over the years, 1 or 2 extra strips of cotton in there never hurts at all. So I have to use this hand to work my way down the leg to finish. So we're going to assume that somebody's going to hold here for me and keep her in that position. If you could keep your toes down right about there for me while the fiberglass is setting up. Toes lower, Minji. Right there. There you go. So like all of the casts you've seen in all the previous videos, you want to hold while this starts to set up. In a little bit different than the traditional cast, you're putting a little bit more pressure to keep that 5 or 10 degrees of extra dorsiflexion. If you come around the side, you can actually see how we're a little bit past 90. Each cast, sometimes they'll change, the doctors will change the cast once a week, sometimes they'll change them twice a week. But assuming that most stretching casts we do at least 2 to 3 sets minimal. And if you're doing that 2 to 3 sets, that means if you're leaving them on for 2 weeks at a time, you're going into a 6 to 8 week period of casting. Each time you want to try and get a little bit more each time. Most of the time when these casts are ordered, it's an elective kind of thing. It's a nice thing because it helps prevent the discussion of surgery for a child. But the other thing too is the social aspect. Most people will opt to do this in the summertime during the school summer break or in the winter break, because kids are they're ruthless and they go to school wearing 2 stretching casts, and sometimes kids can be a little bit on the hard with the schoolmates. So we're going to let that set up for a few minutes, and we're going to put the top layer on. As you're putting the top layer on, the color or the print or whatever they've chosen, try to do an extra couple of turns at the toes, because remember, this is where they want to put the majority of their weight is on their toes and on the ball of their foot. So even though your cast is going to be dorsiflexed, this is the part that's going to get the most wear and tear, not the heel. You still do the heel like we would normally do the heel, but you just put an extra couple of turns on the toes, because you'll see when they come back in a week or 2, you're going to see how this part gets worn out very, very quickly. Even with the cast shoes that you're going to offer them, they're going to get cast shoes when they leave to go with the cast for weight bearing, and you need the cast shoes for surface contact. But even with the cast shoes on, this whole front portion, the most distal part of the cast is going to get the most wear and tear. So again, currently I'm holding the foot myself, but if you're worried that you're not able to do it alone, or you start to see this inner ankle bone rolling towards the outside, get another set of hands to keep her centered and keep the weight distributed, keep the bend distributed nice and even and centered. I'll go ahead and finish this wrap, and then we'll close up the video. So as you can see, we've got a nice dorsiflex stretching cast. Did you get a good lateral, Steve? You want to get that there? So as you're looking at it, we're getting about 5 to 10 degrees extra bend in the dorsiflexion position. Each cast, she's going to come back in a week to 2 weeks. We're going to take this cast off. We're going to do another one exactly like this one, but hopefully a little bit more bend to it, and so on and so forth. Remember that casting, whether we do 1 set or 2 sets or 3 sets, there's always the chance of reoccurrence. So this patient may come back in a year or 2. We may have to do this all over again, depending on what their pre-existing conditions are, special needs, etc., or a stroke patient if you're dealing with adults. The other thing too to keep in mind, there are many instances when we're done with the casting, they go into a brace, whether it be a nighttime sleeping brace to keep their foot flexed while they're asleep, or sometimes they'll put the children in AFO braces to wear to school, ankle foot orthosis, AFO, ankle foot orthosis braces. They'll put those and they'll put the kids' feet in there, and then they'll put them in a shoe. They can go to school wearing those to school. And again, going back to that social thing where they don't have to wear these to school during the school year. So again, what you have here would be the very first set of a stretching cast series when it comes to serial casting a toe walking patient with a stretching cast. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more. And as always, thanks for subscribing and keeping up with us. Take care.